Hi there again. It's good to be with you. I know that I've struggled with the first bull ride that didn't work, and I think it's up and fixed now. But I'm going to do a number of stories on Smoky. I'm going to start with the first Smoky, which was a Smoky that Dad had. Smoky was a beautiful horse, not only the one Dad had, but the one that I had later. They were stocking-legged, had white legs up to the knees, called stocking legs, had a blaze, or not a blaze, but a ball face, which meant a wide white face on him. And the Smoky that Dad had, when Dad was young, he had just gotten this horse to train because Daddy Bill was a horse trader, my grandfather. And he would bring horses home for Dad to break and ride and to break his teams, and you've heard some of that story. But this summer, when Dad was 13, a fellow hired him to take a herd of cattle and to ride herd on them all summer long. And he was going to take them to a pasture that was east of Norman, Oklahoma a ways. And for 3 months, Dad was out there with those cows, didn't see but one person in 3 months' time, except for the horse that he was riding. And as he was taking the cattle out, he went by a farm, and a dog came out, and Dad threw him a piece of a biscuit off of his horse, and the dog followed him. And so Dad's companions for that 3 months was that dog and a horse. Interesting sidelight about the dog is that Dad had never done much cooking before then, and so he's making his own meals, and he was making biscuits. Well, he decided he was bad enough at making biscuits that he wanted to make sure that they were okay to eat, and so he'd make biscuits and he'd offer them to the dog. And if the dog wouldn't eat them, he wouldn't eat them. And so it took a little while for him to get to where he was a good biscuit maker. And I can tell you, in his later years, when I was being raised, Dad was a wonderful biscuit maker. But he got acquainted with this horse, and the horse got acquainted with him. And when he came back after the summer of herding these cattle, he discovered that the dog was very protective of him and his horse. And Dad would tell his friends, says, "I'll bet you can't get on the horse." And they'd say, "Oh, yeah, I mean, they all rode." And so the friend would start to go to the horse. Well, the dog wouldn't let him to the horse. And then Dad would say, "Well, I'll hold the dog, and I'll still bet you can't ride my horse," because his horse would buck with him and throw him off. And so the first Smoky, Dad had named him Smoky, and I guess he named him that because where there's fire, there's smoke. But anyway, that was the first Smoky. And then when I got my Smoky, he was again a stocking-legged chestnut. He was half quarter horse and half thoroughbred. Beautiful horse. And we'll have some pictures on the tail end of this so that you can see him with Camary and Russell riding him. And we'll have a lot of stories to come. So have a wonderful day.